Here's what I picture, okay? It's 7 o'clock West Coast time. Actually, you know what? I got to scratch this idea because they were actually out to dinner. Pete Alonso or drinks or whatever. Stevie Cohen, Mr. Boris, and David Stearns. But you know my theory always, AJ, it's that Boris is working late. He's on the West Coast, so it's even later East Coast. Having a little casual combo with an owner who's got cocktail in hand. Finishes cocktail, says, screw it, let's do it. And that's how deals all get done between about 10 and 1 a.m. in baseball.
Well, the owners were all in Palm Beach this week for the owners meeting. So Tampa to Palm Beach for Steve Cohen, that's a short helicopter ride. For the layperson, that's a pretty long car ride. But for him, either helicopter or jet from Palm Beach to Tampa is not very far.
Yeah, it's like, what, 20 minutes in the air? Just because you got to get up and speed up and go down. Maybe 10? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not very far. It's like a 4-hour drive. So, I mean, whatever a 4-hour drive equates to.
Right. Maybe he has some new vehicle that we don't even know about that gets you there quicker without even having to go in the air.
Hovercraft.
Underground teleportation, Todd Father, to get these deals done. But you were on with us last night. We did a little breaking news. And I just always picture the cocktail in hand, sitting back in the lounge chair like, all right, I'm good. Because you're feeling a little better late at night if you're one of those billionaires.
Yeah, you just you sit back no matter what time it was, wherever they were at. I think the opportunity arose. They had these, call them battles back and forth, trying to figure out, how much, how many years. And once it's all said and done, like I said yesterday, I think Steve Cohen made out like a bandit. I honestly did. He worked like any businessman did. He worked his magic. He played leverage. He understood that, maybe Pete didn't have that many teams on his tail, if maybe one other team. And he said, you know what, you're going to either take this or leave it pretty much. And they tried for 3 years for 71, and that didn't work. And they got the 2 years for $54 million with an opt-out after the first year. So time was running short. Time was running thin. So you got to make a decision as a player, as an agent, and as a business owner. But I do think Steve Cohen made it out on top.
You bring up an interesting point. So let's charge the damn mound because we're going to spend 10 minutes on this Pete Alonso return to the New York Mets.
Charging the mound.
The Mets are rich, but they are not going to negotiate against themselves. So there's the news. You got 2 years opt out after year one. He had the choice of the 371 or the 254. You're like, why would he take 254? That's less than Christian Walker even got in guaranteed years on the market. Walker, of course, did 3 years, 60. But Kratz, he gets 30 years or 30 million in year one. So he gets the most money in this case and then can hop back into the market. I think about the Chris Davis situation from years back when the Orioles were either the only ones or definitely by far the highest bidders, and he wanted to go back there. But that one lasted for a while, and he got even more money out of it. And I think the Mets were like, yeah, we're not going to play like that. They did have to push the chips to the table and say, if you really have something at a larger level, we're okay with Mark Vientos at first base. You always have to have that risk involved, and clearly David Stearns was okay with that.
It's a bold move. But it's also like, you got to think, how many first basemen have ever been paid $30 million a year to play exclusively first base?
2.
So
do you know who they are?
It was
Votto?
Pete. And there's only one other. Pete. I'm counting Pete. There's only one other that's gotten $30 million in a season. Anyone know? AJ, do you know?
30 million in one season?
Like an AAV of 30 million or more, because
it's got to be Freddie. Is it Freddie?
No, it's not Freddie.
No, I thought it was
Prince
Albert.
Fielder?
Miggy.
Oh, Miggy.
Miggy's at 31 a year on that last deal, and Pete, if you're just saying he's going to get this 1 year, is getting 30, which is the second most ever for a free agent first baseman in one season.
And Jim Bowden's coming on later. He said he wants Scott goes in like three different wavelengths. Like he wants the longest term. He wants the largest overall contract. He wants some type of AAV. Now he can say, hey, I got Pete, the second most ever for a single season, second most AAV for a single season for a first baseman, which pushes all first baseman salaries up. So good for Pete in that sense. And, I think that's where the whole choosing the 2-year deal over the 3-year deal, because both had opt-outs after the first year, but the other one would have given him $27 million.
AJ, do you think Pete's okay after all of this psychologically?
I think he's fine psychologically. I think he's disappointed though in what he got. I mean, 1 year 30 is great, but we were going in this offseason talking about him getting like $200 million, remember? And he got 30 for 1 year. Now guess what he's got to do? He's got to go out and bang this year, and he's got to absolutely rake this year if he wants to get back into free agency next year. Now, I think if you look at the free agents next year, it's a little bit of a weaker class, but he's a year older, and first basemen just don't get paid.
And there's competition, too. Next year's Vladdy Jr., Naylor. I haven't gone through the deeper end of the list, but there are going to be other free agents.
I don't think next year's class is as good. I know for Scott Boras is not, but I don't think it's as good as it was this year. This year was a pretty solid class.
Yeah, it was. And the numbers game, Todd Father, since we spoke last night. So he needed to beat 6 years, $137.5 million, even though the offer was bigger. You got to count the 20.5 that he got from this past season when we're comparing the offer from 2 years ago, which was 150, whatever. Okay. So now when we factor in the 30 million he's making this year, he needs to get to 5 years, 107.5 for basically the rest of his career to not regret taking the deal from 2 years ago. You know what? It sounds crazy, but it's actually still possible. Christian Walker's 3 or more years older than him, and he got 60. So if Pete goes out and crushes it, it's not out of the realm of possibility that he can get himself a little 5-year 110 piece and be good. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, he can get close to that.
Now, when they gave him that offer, who was Boras his agent at the time, or was he not?
No. Boras wasn't his agent, and Stearns wasn't running the Mets front office. Very different.
So you can't even say anything about, if I'm Pete Alonso complaining about, well, you were my agent then, why did you tell me this? So it's that back and forth battle, man. I've been there before, but with not as much money, don't get me wrong. But, when some people are saying, no, this is what you're supposed to get, and then people are offering you 2 of the same amounts from other teams, and it's by far not even close of what you are supposed to get from what, people are telling you. And it's frustrating. In the back of his mind, he's happy. He's glad. He's set for life, of course. But, knowing Pete, he'll be fine. But, there's still going to be a little morsel in the back of your mind saying, did I get the old screw here, So hopefully he blocks that out and goes and plays. But everybody's human. People are human. They're allowed to be upset over things, but it's that factor of understanding. Listen, didn't work out, but I'm still getting paid. I'm still playing for the team I wanted to, and hopefully I go out and have a really good year so I can shove it in their face and say, you know what? Yeah, you want me back? Guess what? 2, 3 other teams want me for this price. I'm out of here. You know what I mean? Hopefully, we'll see what happens.
AJ, there's 2 things I want to push your way from that. One is if you go 3 years ago, Pete Alonso had a 146 OPS plus. That's dominance, monster, top 10 bat. The 2 seasons since then, 123, 123, 23% better than league average. Very good, very solid. Yeah. But it's not the 146. Same with, so they're comparing Pete to Christian Walker, even though there's an age difference, and saying Christian Walker's OPS plus comps the last 3 years are 125, 122, 121. So they're like, you're basically the same bat, and Walker is the sickest, if not one of the top first base gloves in the game. FanGraphs WAR the last 3 seasons has Walker at 10.8, Pete at 8.7. I'd rather have Pete, but I'm just saying this is what plays against him. And then he goes back. And I also want you to give me your thoughts on this part, because actually the spiciest part of last night's show that we did breaking news was Erik Kratz saying, cool, welcome back, Pete, but the Mets are a 3rd place team.
Well, that's Kratz's homerism coming through. So we know Kratz isn't going to give the Mets any credit. Let's not forget that. We know he's going to go full homerism. I can't argue with him actually on that one because I think it's going to be an interesting run. I think it's going to be an interesting run in the NL East, depending on who stays healthy, which pitching staff stays the healthiest. But as far as the Christian Walker thing goes, the numbers are the numbers, and that's what teams look at now. You can say he's a great clubhouse guy, and man, he really fits in. He's going to help your young guys. But teams go, his OPS plus and his WAR is less than Christian Walker. Why should we pay him more? The only team that he means more than those numbers to are the New York Mets, because no other team knows Pete Alonso. The Mets know Pete Alonso. So again, he wanted to be in New York. The fans wanted him in New York, and he's back for 1 year. Could be 2. I mean, unless he just has a disaster year, he's going to opt out and try again. So it's a 1-year deal for Pete. He got $30 million. Good for him. Good luck. It'll be a good year to hit 50 homers again.
Todd, where are we at with the Mets?
Looking at the projected lineup, I know we could pop that up there.
Yeah.
If you're looking top 5 guys, you got a bottom of the lineup that, I don't know. From the years past, and Jeff McNeil, I talked about, he needs to pick it back up a little bit. If he's the Jeff McNeil the old, you could pencil him in for another good year. Winker, Alvarez, and Siri, you got to step up. Listen, Mark Vientos had a really good year. I'm not knocking the guy, but it's only 1 year. Let's see if he can repeat that too as well. They do have some guys that are coming up that have played before too. That Kratz was talking about. I'll let him get his skin in the game too here, but if you're looking at this lineup, it's an okay lineup. It's half a good lineup at the end of the day, and they're going to have to work their butts off. And they have good starting pitching. Their relief, they need some more relief. They need some better relief pitching too as well. So there's a lot that still needs work done. Is Steve going to go out there and get some more guys? I don't know. I think they've done a lot this offseason. But yeah, it looks like an okay team to me. They're gonna make some noise, but they're gonna need some help in the bottom of that lineup.
Yeah, you hit everything on the head. They have the depth to me in the lineup. They don't have guys like you. You just can't run a team. It's kind of like their starting rotation. You can't run a team on the fact of, well, if this guy, I hope he does. I can't. He should do this. Like, you look at McNeil's projections. McNeil's projected at 100 OPS guy, 100 OPS plus guy. You look at Jose Siri's a below average hitter. You look at Alvarez. To me, Alvarez's value, he should hit 8th the entire season. His value is all behind the dish, the energy that he brings. If he hits 20 homers for you behind the dish, you're talking about an all-star catcher. Like, there's a lot of potential in the bottom of the lineup, but the top is definitely solidified. To me, I don't even think the bottom of the lineup is the Achilles heel for them, because I think there's so many guys. I don't think Jesse Winker is going to DH every day. There's so many guys that are going to have an opportunity to get hot and play and win in this team, because this team wants to win. The biggest issue is going to be how that rotation holds up, because then that'll dictate how the a little bit beleaguered bullpen holds up. If they have to be leaned on all year, the bullpen, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for them.
Yeah, how is AJ Minter going to do? Is Clay Holmes going to be able to kick it in the starting rotation? If not, that's fine. That's actually a really nice bullpen piece for them to be able to have in the mix that I think could be needed. Stanik's back. They did a lot. They did a lot this offseason. They built a little more outfield depth because they always deal with injuries like a Starling Marte, who's not going to be on the field a ton. It's just that point of the career for him. So we'll see. But I'm with you. I think the starting rotation, just like last year, is the biggest question mark. And last year, the reason that it carried them to the playoffs and then a run is because those dudes had freaking standout seasons. Season of his life for Minaya, Severino, huge bounce back. So can they be the pitching whisperers again? I don't feel the same way about Montas. I think we all have documented that throughout the offseason. So we'll see. But yeah, I like the team. I could easily see them finishing in 3rd, but I do think they're a wild card team at least, and they would be a problem in the playoffs. All right, let's get Jim Bowden's take when we swing back. We'll do a little front office inside focus. We actually have a segment name for it now. I don't want to give it away yet. FT is sponsored by 1-800-Flowers.com. And we are how many sleeps away? Kratz, I think it's, what is it, 8? Today's the 6th. Is it the 14th still the day?
6.
Valentine's Day?
6 more sleeps. Oh, for Valentine's Day, 8.
Yes,
yeah,
not for your Valentine's Day is pitchers and catchers.
Sorry.
I already
got my Valentine's gift. I already gave my Valentine's gift to my wife. The orchid is blooming like crazy. I think it's a fuchsia orchid. For everybody who doesn't know what fuchsia is, it's purple. Fuchsia. And if Grayson Rodriguez is listening, yes, Grayson, I'm talking about flowers. I'm talking about gifts. I'm talking about love. There's no better place than our people at 1-800-Flowers.
Yes, .com/FT. That's the offer. Double the roses for free. You buy 1 dozen. They're going to double your bouquet to 2 dozen roses. It is just the perfect way to get the job done on Valentine's Day without breaking the bank. Great value for you. Bouquets are selling fast. Lock in your order today. So check out the QR code on the screen right now to double your roses. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/FT. That is 1-800-Flowers.com/FT. FT fam, get after it. Oh, look at that beauty. You want a little Sherry's Berries involved in there too? You want a little chocolate covered straw?
Oh, those Johns are delicious.
They are. So it's all on 1-800-Flowers.com. Be right back with Jim Bowden. All right, let's do this. We've got CBS Sports insider Jim Bowden joining us right now. Also find his work in The Athletic. I've been told we got some fancy front office animation that we will unveil, not yet, in a couple weeks. So stay tuned on that one. But I know we're almost there. We're almost there. Something for everyone to look forward to. JB, Pete Alonso, back to the Mets. How do you think he feels, and what do you think the conversation was like at the dinner last night in Tampa between him, Boris, owner Steve Cohen, front office leader David Stearns?
Yeah, I think Scott got the $30 million that he wanted in the front year for Pete Alonso. I mean, this is the same kind of deal he did with Blake Snell a year ago. You know, I think the way the Mets viewed his value was somewhere around $24 million in between Matt Olson and Freddie Freeman. That's where they wanted to land. And Scott wanted to do that Blake Snell, Cody Bellinger deal, which is, you know what, I'll get $30 million. I'll opt out after 1 year. If he gets injured or has a bad year, I've got 2 years at $54 million booked, so I can always play the second year for $24 million. But, you know, with Juan Soto hitting in front of me, let me go hit 40 home runs. I'll put up a big year, and I'll go right back in the market, and I'll get my 5 years at 26 or my 5 years at 28, and I already got 30 up front towards what I want to get to. So, you know, if you're going to do a short-term deal, Scott has made a huge living for star players doing it this way. And Pete wants that long-term deal. He's just going to have to get 2 or 3 contracts to get the same amount he wanted in the first place.
Now, let me ask you this. That long-term deal, was there an opportunity to get that long-term deal? I mean, whether it was with another team or just the Mets, like what happened in that situation? I know Pete really wanted to solidify himself as a Met for the rest of his career. So was there any opportunity for them talking and finalizing, close to $200 million is what we were expecting?
Yeah, I think early on he had a chance to get, I think it was somewhere between 160, 165, somewhere along a long time ago. And then when free agency occurred and Juan Soto got his deal, then the Mets went shorter term. So the choice was either this 2-year 54 or 3 years at $72 million. And, they want the longer term deal. And, as Scott can show him, he's had a lot of clients in his career that he's done a short term deal with. And then you go back on the market and you go and do it again. And from the Mets perspective, you love the short-term deal because you love the fact that Pete has to perform to continue to pay him at this level. And look, they can extend him again later if they decide to. If he hits 40 home runs and they want to give him a 4 or 5 year deal in the offseason, they can do that as well. So look, I think this is a win short-term for Pete. I know he didn't get the long-term deal he wanted, but I think they waited too long, right? I mean, they waited, and all of a sudden the Yankees filled up first base. Arizona filled up first base. The Seattle Mariners didn't have any money to play at the position. So, the position dried up really quickly. There weren't a lot of options at the end. They tried to get San Francisco in, but Buster Posey said, look, I don't believe in opt-outs. I'm not going to do it. Toronto really wants to sign Guerrero and put their money there, and they signed Santander. So at the end of the day, there weren't a lot of options for Pete. But he ended up doing a really good short-term deal, I think, considering the circumstances.
Can this, exactly what you just said, be kind of a precursor to, hey, we don't want to go past this 3 years, whether it's Stearns or not, but a Vladdy coming on the market next year, the Mets being a big player? Because we've seen teams kind of like go, you know what? Like the Dodgers kind of had their one rebuild year so they could go in with Shohei and everything. I know it's not a rebuild year, but it's a Dodgers rebuild year. Could this be indicative of that possibly down the road here, or not even on the same stratosphere?
Yeah, the reason it's not the same conversation is all because of age, right? I mean, the only reason Juan Soto got $760 million is he hit the market at 25 or 26 years old. So because Vladdy is so young, he's going to get, I predicted in my article in The Athletic that he'd get 12 years, $477 million. He may get more than that. But, Guerrero is that 320 hitter with 30 home runs and in your 20s. And so I think those players are going to get paid. But I got to tell you, based on all of their algorithms and all of the analytics, the clubs are nervous about players that are north of 31 years old, and especially power hitters. And so, I think most clubs are going to be very conservative in that area of players. But if you get to the market at 25, 26, 27, you're going to get the years and you're going to get the dollars.
Can the front offices look past that analytical part? Because, when you look at Pete, 124, 126, OPS plus, they're just not, even his best year was 146, so he's not even close to that elite level. Is there an organization that has been leaning towards looking past that to be able to just go get a guy that they really think they need?
It only takes one team, right?
Right.
That's how the market changes. It only takes one GM, one owner out of the 30 to go against the grain and go there. In Pete's case, what is he? He's a below average defender at first. He's a 40 home run bat. But I also think what he proved last year in the postseason is he can perform in the biggest moments on the biggest stage. And he also proved everyone that he can play in the New York market and succeed in the New York market. So he's got a lot of intangibles around him. I think if you wanted to look at all the first basemen, he doesn't belong in the conversation with Freddie Freeman or Vladimir Guerrero Jr., or in my opinion, not even Matt Olson. But 40 home runs, how many first basemen are there that hit 40 home runs or have the potential to do that? Not a lot. So if you can get them on shorter term deals and you don't have to worry about the back end of the deals, remember, I think when you look at the Padres, they're going to regret paying Xander Bogaerts to 40. They're going to regret paying Manny Machado to 40. And clubs don't want to be in that position because when you get to that point, it really hamstrings you on being competitive at that point. So David Stearns is a smart guy. He didn't want to go long-term with Pete, and he found a way not to go long-term.
JB, the owners' meetings are happening right now in Florida. We're going to cover this later in the show, but I want to get the front office perspective of what's happening there. Your colleague over at The Athletic, Evan Drellick, has written about how they're debating how they want to handle a potential salary cap situation and that push in a couple of years, and how long they'd be willing to sit out and not have games go on after the expiration in 2026 for the 2027 season. One other thing I want to add to the mix here and then get your thoughts is Drellick just reported that 2 new MLB owners are joining Rob Manfred's executive council at the owners' meetings. That's Steve Cohen of the Mets. We're really going on the opposite side of the spectrum here. And John Fisher of the A's, which joins a team of 6 others, owners of the Angels, D-backs, Giants, Guardians, Marlins, and Red Sox. So I'll kind of open the floor here to your thoughts on how any of this works and what you see happening. John Fisher is an interesting choice to be on any committee in baseball right now.
Yeah, and I think what Commissioner Manfred's trying to do is to bookend the biggest market owner with the smallest owner market, and then try to figure out how everyone can come together to get with a system that works a little bit better here. I mean, look, I think most teams outside of New York, Los Angeles, maybe Philadelphia would like to have some kind of salary cap where there's a floor and there's a ceiling and then there's a range within there. Maybe you use 100 million differential where the highest team is here and the lowest team has to at least be 100 million less than that, some kind of range like that. Salary caps have never, the whole concept has never worked in the past. No one's ever bought in on the Players Association side. And I think that's the biggest part, is that I think that as we learned over the last several CBAs, the most important thing is to get on board with the Players Association and work with them to try to find a system that works. You know, I know there's a lot of players that are opposed to a salary cap, but I think if it's done properly, there is a way that it works. I don't think MLB would ever be able to do a cap system that is successful like the NFL and the NBA have, where you literally have parity, where you literally have small market teams that have a chance to compete with the big markets. But you can bring it a lot closer. And I think what we've seen the last couple of years is Dodgers, Yankees, Mets, Phillies have kind of run away from most of the pack here. And I know we've tried to correct that with the luxury tax and the CBT issues and taking away draft picks, but all of those moves really haven't worked well enough. So I think we have to still keep trying to find ways. And I got to tell you, if I'm a player, look, I want to make sure I maximize salaries, but I also want to make it more competitive with all 30 teams. So hopefully both sides can find a way to creatively kind of embrace the idea of a salary cap and try to find a way to make it work.
All right. A couple things here, Jim. One, excuse me, you're not getting a salary cap without a salary floor, okay? Right. And when you have a team like the Marlins, even you can throw in the White Sox, the Pirates, and they have their low salaries for their floors, you're going to have to get that up. Right now you have a soft salary cap, luxury tax. Some teams just don't care about it, right? Why? The Dodgers have a better TV deal. The Mets have a better TV deal. The Yankees have a better TV deal. John Middleton wants to win. You're never going to get that to be equal. Now, you brought up the other leagues. What does the NBA, the NHL, the NFL, what do they always argue about? How much revenue, because it's all based on the revenue in the sport, right? The owners aren't ever going to show you all the revenue that they're getting. They're never going to do it. You worked in the front office. You know how this works. They don't show you all the revenue. The Braves have to. They're publicly traded. I'm sure there's ways they can kind of finagle some stuff too. I don't know how all that works. It's way smarter than I am. But until you can get the owners to open their books and say, hey, yeah, we made $15 billion as a sport last year, and players are supposed to get 50% of that, owners are supposed to get 50% of that, and you get all the other outside companies that the owners use to hide money and finagle their business models, it's always going to be an argument. So that's why in other leagues you see the NBA arguing over it all the time. You see the NFL arguing over it. Oh, they're saying they're making $10 billion when they're really making $13 billion. It's never going to stop, even if you put a cap in. It's just a way. It'll be just different finances. I don't know. I don't think it's going to work. I don't know how you make it closer, like you said, unless you get a floor. And if you get a floor, the owners are going to want a cap. I don't know. I just don't think it's going to work, and it's going to get nasty here the next one if the owners dig in on this.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you have to do is you have to I think we have to take the television and the streaming revenue and be able to share that more equally with all 30 teams, of which the big markets obviously don't want to do it because they make a lot more money. But here's the argument that small and middle market teams have, which is you can't if we don't agree to you televising our game, then you don't get that income. So if every team outside of the two New York teams, the Dodgers and the Phillies, if all the other teams, the 26 teams say, you can televise all the games you want, but just you can't televise our games. If you're not going to give us equal revenue, then you can't televise it. Then what is the value of TV you're not going to be able to televise your games. And that's the kind of the argument the small and middle markets can get to get more revenue sharing that creates an easier path, I think with the players to have that argument for a cap. I agree with you completely. You cannot have a salary cap without a floor. You can't sit there also and share revenues with teams like Miami, the Athletics, the Pirates. You can't share all this revenue and then not force these teams to spend not just what they're getting, but more than what they're getting, right? And so, yeah, we have an issue at both ends right now. And I think we need to share more revenue. We need to have a floor. You need to have a cap that works. And opening the books, yeah, that is the right answer. And you're right. There are a lot of owners that will never let that happen. But you certainly can argue, if you're the players, that there's certain revenue streams that the players should be able to audit. And those are the bigger revenue streams.
How contentious do these owners' meetings get? Because I've been in Players Association meetings, and you have people at different ends of the spectrum on things. Is it the same way with the owners? Because they put out a picture of, we agree with each other all the time. And yet some of the things you see, you're like, I don't think he agrees with that.
Yeah, so I was in a lot of the owners' meetings. And in fact, there was one year that I was the acting owner of the Reds when my owner was suspended for a year. And that was during one of the CBA negotiations in the mid-'90s. And I can tell you that it gets very contentious, a lot of anger. You have little cliques, little groups, right? So I was in that lower middle market kind of ownership group, and I had the small markets, the real small markets, trying to pull me in. I had the big markets trying to pull me up because they needed my vote, right? But it is intense because they're totally different. Even the GM jobs, they're totally different. If you're a big market GM or a small market GM, they're totally different jobs. And if you're an owner, it's a whole different level if you're in the top third of the industry. So one thing that the teams do is the teams, when they're done voting, they try to get everyone to make it unanimous so they can have a solid front to the public. So let's just say if the voting on something ended up being 22-8, there's a lot of times that gets announced as unanimous because those 8 teams are asked very nicely, let's make this one unanimous like all of them. So yeah, they like to do that, but it's like any group of people. Not everybody's ever going to agree. They all have different needs. They all have different problems, and they all have different philosophies. And so it's like every other group in America, right? It's a group of 30 people that all have their own personal agendas. They want what they want. And so you got to try to find a way to make the industry all happy. But behind the scenes, no, it's just like any other. It's just like the players' side.
I view it as a Royal Rumble. They're all just in a cage, and it's just all the owners, and whoever gets thrown out says, we agreed to everything. Speaking of agreeing to things,
yeah.
How do the medicals work with not only with trades, but also with what happened with Hoffman? Because we think about Jack Flaherty's trade, and it came out, the Yankees were like, we're not real sure about his medicals. Well, that hurts everybody. What are you not sure about? Let everybody know. Same with Hoffman. He got failed and ended up signing with the Blue Jays, which is good for him. But how does that all work? And why does some of it leak out and not others?
Yeah, so it's a great question, Erik. A lot of people don't know the answer to these things. So part of the job as a general manager is risk management, and you're like an insurance underwriter yourself. That's your responsibility. So when you do a medical with players, I always use 2 orthopedic doctors, the team one, and then I would use James Andrews out of Alabama. And you would get all the information. And what you find is, as an example, almost every pitcher in baseball has some kind of tear in their shoulder, some kind of tear in their elbow. Every position player has something that's degenerative. It could be a back, it could be a knee. There's always something with players, right? And so the doctors tend to protect themselves, right? They don't want to recommend something and then a guy gets injured. And then they're the ones in their mind responsible for the millions that you lost because he's on the injured list, right? So they tend to tell you to stay away in general. So then you have to look at each GM and what their position is long-term, short-term, right? So Alex Anthopoulos of the Braves is signed long-term. Mike Elias is going to be in Baltimore long term. So they look at Jeff Hoffman's situation, 3-year, $33 million deal, and the doctors have some issues with him medically, which we can't talk about. There's HIPAA laws. But they have risks there. They don't want to sit there and pay $33 million to a guy that might get injured after 1 year. They don't want to sit there and have that money sitting on the books, so they pass. You didn't pass the physical, we're going to move on. Now you get to Toronto, you have Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins. Their contracts are up this year. They got to win, or they may not have their jobs a year from now. They got to win now. So they may look at the medicals a little bit different, saying, you know what? Yeah, there's risk here. This is the only way we're going to sign him, is on a 3-year deal. Let's roll the dice. We got to win now anyway. Let's win. We'll get our contracts. And then if he blows out, we have enough resources to be able to replace him. Let's take that gamble. And I can tell you, in my career, I signed Ron Gant after he got in a motorcycle accident, broke his legs. The Braves released him. And my doctor said, don't sign him. I don't think he'll ever play again. I ended up signing him, with a low base with incentives. And he helped lead our team to the NLCS the next year against the Braves, ironically. So I kind of went against the medicals of the doctors. And then it paid off. Another time, I traded for Scott Olson, a left-hand pitcher for the Marlins, because I wanted an outfielder, Josh Willingham, that was in the deal. And the medicals weren't great on Olson. They went through the risk with me, and I'm like, I'll take a chance anyway. And that one didn't work. But again, that's on me. That's the gamble or the risk that the GM gets. Now, in the case of Flaherty that you mentioned, last July, the Tigers and Yankees agreed to a trade Flaherty to the Yankees for a really good prospect. When the Yankees did the medicals, they didn't like the risk. And remember, it was just 1 year. They didn't want to give up the prospect because they didn't know Flaherty would be healthy in October. Now, the Tigers disagreed. They thought he was healthy. The Dodgers thought the medicals were fine. They said, let's go. We'll make the deal. The Dodgers won the World Series. Flaherty was a part of that. So now he goes on to the open market. Teams are now all looking at the medicals. They're like the Yankees. They don't love the risk here. Even the Tigers that traded him didn't love the risk either. So they're like, short term, okay. Long term, I don't know. So they structured the deal with him, right? $25 million this year. If you make 15 starts, the next year will be $20 million if you could pitch a half a year. Otherwise, it's $10 million, and you get an opt-out after 1 year. So again, it's all about the medical risk. Same thing the Red Sox did with Walker Buehler on that 1 year, $20 million deal. He didn't get a long-term deal. Same thing. Teams don't like the risk of the medicals. So it's just a big part of GM's jobs is get all the information on the health, and then it's up to you to make the decision of what kind of risk you're willing to take or not take.
I love that. What a great explanation. Except you got to tell us who the prospect was that they were going to give up for Jack Flaherty. You can't say just a good prospect.
I can tell you it was a middle infielder. How's that?
Okay, we'll take that. Our pinstripe territory, Derek guru that he is, he'll figure it out for you for the rest of us.
Durbin. I'm guessing Durbin because he got traded later
That would be my
on.
guess. But.
Yeah. All right, last one. Let's talk about youngsters here because you wrote an article about the top 30 potential Rookie of the Year candidates that you're excited to watch in spring training. Little controversy at the top. Jackson Jobe is number 1 on your list. Roki Sasaki is on this list too, but he is in the 3 spot. So, JB, I want you to explain, your thought process at the top. Then everyone can read the article to get the rest because we don't have time. And I do want to preface it by saying that you like to go against the grain on prospects that you like versus many other publications, right? I think you were probably the highest person on, I want to say Jackson Churio, and I might be missing someone else in the past 10 years. I want to say maybe an Acuna, but I'm also going to give people the bad. You were a big Jordan. Who was it?
Juan Soto was my big one.
Soto was your big one.
Robles, right? It was Soto that was my guy. Yeah.
I'm going to give them 1 and 1, JB, just to be fair, okay? So Soto was your big one over Robles when many others had Robles. That's a massive win. The latest one, I would say on the other end would be Jordan Walker. That has not worked out yet, right? You've been higher on him than others, although we can make a case that he hasn't really been given a full chance, a full runway, so still TBD. But anyway, tell me about this one.
Yeah, and I was wrong on Wyatt Langford last year too. But by the way, I'll be right on both Langford and Walker. I just am not right on the timetable. The prime years are 24 to 31, and a lot of times I get too excited when they're 21 and 22. but then a couple years later they hit. So the reason, look, this particular article wasn't ranking prospects. It was ranking guys to win Rookie of the Year. And so the reason I have Jackson Jobe at the top of my list, number one, I think he's the second best pitching prospect in baseball behind Sasaki. Throws 98, 99. He's got a wipeout slider, a plus change, plus cutter for that matter. Love the delivery, love the command, love the composure. But it's more importantly, he's going to be in a 5-man rotation instead of the 6-man rotation that Sasaki's in. And the Tigers don't have to baby his innings. He'll be the third starter after Skubal and Flaherty in the rotation. AJ Hinch is not afraid to put him out there every fifth day. And I'm a big believer in the stuff and the command that it brings to the table. As much as I think Sasaki is a better pitching prospect with the higher ceiling, I don't think he's a finished product. I'm a little bit leery about the velo being down a little bit. I think he needs a little bit more development. He's going to be in a 6-man rotation on a team that has 10 legitimate big league starters and 5 number 1 starters. And they tend to like to baby their pitchers now in the regular season because they know they're going to play in October anyway. And they like to get their pitchers all set up for the month of October, which is what matters the most to that organization. So I just kind of feel like I've got Jobe over Sasaki just because I think he's going to get more starts, more volume. And that's a difference maker. So that's why I've got him over Sasaki for this list.
Right, for this Rookie of the Year candidate list. Very different from how you're projecting prospects going forward, but that's for another time. JB, great to have you on. We'll catch you next week, okay?
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you. That's Jim Bowden, insider CBS Sports. Check out that article in The Athletic. Be right back to cover Tommy Pham signing with Buccos. We got a super chat, and also I'm going to do this kind of early in the show just to make AJ excited. Please subscribe to Foul Territory.
Was that hard?
Like and subscribe.
Was that hard?
It's free. It's free.
I just don't know why I have to do it. I feel like people listen to you more than they listen to me. I don't have
You're
any
the host.
likes.
You're the host. You're hosting.
It comes out.
You guys
comes out really nice from you.
It does.
I mean, I'll say it, but I've been told I wasn't supposed to say it at certain times. I don't know what those times are. So,
okay. Then I got it for you. Okay. Justin with a super chat said MLB needs a salary floor, not a cap, and thinks deferral should reflect the contract. Like Ohtani should be 70 million a year, not 46. Totally agree with the floor, AJ. The deferral part doesn't make sense because that'll kill deferrals. That's not how it works. I don't know. I can't do the math again, but Justin, I love you. I love the first part. But the way that they both actually agree on this is the crazy part. I think the optics are just pissing people off, but the owners and the players agree on the way deferrals are structured. It's not that big a deal.
Players shouldn't. Players shouldn't agree with it. It's better to get your money up front, but there's parts of it that help push salaries in a different way. That's it. You should always get your money up front.
Yeah, I would actually counter that it is good for some players, Todd Father, because then they don't spend all the money and they're like, cool, this is coming later on. I know.
But also it's where you're living too as well, too. So, you defer that money and you go live in Texas or Florida or one of those states where there's no income tax, you're going to save a little more money down the road. So if you're thinking like that, that's great. Money up front is great. It really just depends on your current situation. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, AJ, you can speak to this with a minute to go here. You're in Florida. You always want bonuses and deferrals in your contracts if you can get them, because you literally will save millions of dollars. That's happened multiple times this offseason, including with Blake Snell, who's in Washington. They saved him like 7 to 10 mil. Pete got
just
10,
got a
right?
$10 million signing bonus. Where does he live? He lives in Tampa in Florida. Think about the money he saved between Florida and New York just by getting that $10 million signing bonus. It matters. I say this all the time. Every time I was a free agent, I always tried to get a signing bonus. And I always, especially if I signed before the end of the year, I always tried to get it on the end of the year before like January 1st, or just, so I could count it to the taxes from the year before, so I wasn't having to pile it on for the next year. I mean, signing bonuses are a big deal. Deferrals, if I would have been able to get deferrals to Florida, hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Thank you. On the move. I like this. And we had many, many options to choose from with our boy Tommy Pham. So we showed him in a Royals uniform just now, but he signs with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Apparently it came together pretty quickly. It was reported this morning by Katie Wu from Cardinal Territory and The Athletic, along with FT senior insider Ken Rosenthal, also part of The Athletic. So Pham's got 1 year, $4 million to Todd Father's favorite team, the Pittsburgh Pirates. Todd Father, does this put the Pirates over the top and into the postseason?
I'm looking at Kratz's face. I want to see what he thought about that. No, it doesn't. I think they'll be a good team with Paul Skeens and the team that they do have. They find ways to lose games, though. Yeah, I love Tommy Pham, though, man. He's a pickup that any team would love. He's energetic. He's got that swag. You know how he talks, and he's all about team stuff, and he puts people in their place when they're not working hard. I think an organization like the Pirates needs a guy like him because he's going to call some people out in a good way, constructively, and make sure, everybody's doing their job, and hopefully that brings the team together. But nice little solid pickup for Tommy Pham and the Pirates, and hopefully he can change that organization around a little bit.
Hold up. Did you just say the Pirates are a good team with what they have? They finished in last place. They finished in last place last year, and they added Tommy Pham. No offense to Tommy Pham, but he's not putting you into the World Series with one move. I mean, I love this for the Pirates because you know what they're going to do with Tommy Pham? They're going to trade him in July, like happened with the White Sox last year. Like what happened the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that. I think this is a move that more teams should make. I think lower revenue teams like the Marlins, the Rockies, the White Sox, you sign these veteran guys to these 1 year deals, and then you hope they have a great start. And you know what you do? You flip them, and then your prospect comes up and finishes off the year, and then you get something back in return. I don't know why more teams don't do this. Pirates have kind of started to become that team where guys go to and then hopefully get flipped, but we'll see what happens with Tommy. We love Tommy. I love Tommy. So wish him the best.
Yeah, Tommy, welcome to the 10 big league team threshold. Just a very, very small group of people that have played for that many teams, but call me when you hit 14 organizations, all right? You have to get a few AAA contracts. I don't think you got it in you yet, Tommy, but we'll see.
All right, so let's define where we have the Pirates and what's good here, Todd Father. So is 500 good?
I could see them being a little over 500 this year.
Here's the lineup. What are we thinking?
Yeah.
So I actually think this lineup's, it's not great, but it's okay. I mean, there's not superstar bats. There's actually the first half of the lineup featuring like good bats. Pham is going to give you, I would say, at least kind of league average offense and quality at bats at the top. Reynolds and Cruz are the two best bats on the team, but they're not like 140 OPS plus guys, right? They're not superstar bats. They're above average bats. Kutch is okay, and again, gives you a quality at bats, not who you want cleaning up. Joey Bart, I would actually say, is probably an average bat based on what he did with them last year. Spencer Horwitz, they're very high on. Haven't seen much of him. Nick Gonzalez, Key Brian Hayes, and IKF is definitely a softer 7, 8, 9. All right, so actually, I take it back. I would say below average lineup. I would say the rotation is average because you've got an ace, and then you've got some youngsters in Jared Jones. I guess Keller's a vet at this point there, and the back end of the rotation is okay. So so I'm going to give their lineup a C. I'm going to give their rotation a B, and I'm going to give their bullpen a C minus. Because I actually think Bednar was really bad last year, and there's not a lot of punch. You look at that bullpen, you're like, it's not great. So yeah, I'm actually lower on them once I actually start looking at everything. What do you think?
No, yeah, I was just gonna say you keep bringing that OPS plus on there, man. I'm an eye test guy, man. The numbers are going to be the numbers. Like, can this guy play? O'Neal Cruz can play. Brian Reynolds can play. We'll see what McCutchen can do. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to be great by all means, but I do see them. When they come together, they get on these little runs, and then they'll win 7, 8 games in a row. So I see them a little bit over 500 this year playing together as a team.
You better bet a lot of money on that because their over under is not. I mean, if you think that's true, you better put the ranch down on that kid because you can.
What
make
do we know?
2 ranches.
What do we know about it?
What do you mean? I don't know what the number is. I don't know, but I know that I know that they're not projected to be 500. I know that.
No.
I know they're probably a 75 win team on Pacoda. Maybe 77 as a max. I mean, Skeens, can he do it for a whole year to be his first full year, right? Doing it from start to finish. No restrictions. Jones was hurt last year. Keller's been up and down. Ryan Reynolds, nice player. O'Neal Cruz hasn't proved he can do it. McCutcheon's how old? 38, 39 now. Joey Bart was a bust in San Francisco, struggling. Had a nice run in Pittsburgh. Some of these other guys, I don't know. I don't know. Especially the Cubs are going to be better. The Reds should be better. The Brewers are still the Brewers. Yeah, the Cardinals are down, but are they better than any other team in their division?
For me, no. It looks like in the mid to high 70s, like 77.5 range.
I think they finished above the Cardinals.
Under.
Okay.
You do?
That's fair.
I do. Cardinals starting pitching. Wait till you look at the Cardinals starting pitching. I mean, whoa, baby.
But the rest, they have a better bullpen and probably a better offense still.
Today,
I see what you're saying.
Today they have a better bullpen. Helsley's not going to be there the whole year. He gone.
True.
Arenado, I feel like he still gets moved. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think the Pirates just have too much. They just don't have an identity. Nothing against Joey Bart, but I don't think he's going to be the starter. I think Rodriguez is coming back, and he'll take that role again. More athletic back there, gets a lot done. Bart earned himself some more at-bats this year from last season, but I just think, what's the Pirates' identity? Are they a defensive pitching team? Then you don't put Tommy Pham and sign him and put him out in right field. Are they an all-offensive team? Then where's your MVP candidate in that lineup? Like, you have to have some type of identity, and I don't feel like they have that right now.
And there you go. Let's get to the owners' meetings next up, and then we're also going to talk to Sam Blum with our Angels preview on the show soon. All right, we're back. So I'm going to cover at least one topic right now with you guys because there's like 5 from the owners' meetings, and we're just not going to have time for all of them. So I'll try and do a quicker one right now. The commissioner spoke about the Padres situation and said there has not been a single word or whisper of relocation in the context of the San Diego Padres. San Diego is a great market with a great facility, not a realistic concern. Evan Drellick wrote about it and said some in the industry think that the team will eventually get sold or be put on the market. He said that the Seidler family holds about with a bunch of them, right, including his widow and his brothers hold about 45% of the company. The team's valued at $1.78 billion by Forbes. They did just appoint his older brother John as the guy in charge now of the team. The budget's actually up, AJ, for the Padres. It's $205 million, but that's because a lot of salary increases on their own team. They've lost a ton. So for fan purposes, they just want to know where this team's at now and long term. And the other part I found was the lawsuit from Sheil Seidler, the widow, against the younger brothers could take years to figure out.
Padres ain't moving. Let's establish that. Petco's unbelievable.
Well, that we know.
The area around that is unbelievable. So to even have to say that is like, come on. Like, it's dumb. And also, you said, I don't understand. I don't understand how I was not invited. The owners' meetings are in Palm Beach at this hotel called The Breakers, and I love The Breakers. So how was I not invited? That's all I really care about. Like, I texted Jerry Reinsdorf yesterday. I was like, thanks for the invite. I could have shared a suite with you. I could have had one bedroom, and you could have had the other. He goes, I thought you lived in Orlando. I said, close enough, but I love The Breakers.
Yeah, I read that Manfred changed the way these owner meetings work. They used to work where he would bring a ton of staff, and I think they're still there, and they would all present. And now Manfred's biggest thing is he gets the 30 control people in the room. He walks in alone. They close the door, and that's the best reality show of all time that we never get access to because you get to see the big owners fight.
How come nobody covers this? How come we can't get a camera in there? Like, MLB Network can't put a camera in there. That would be awesome.
It would be so epic to see that battle because then they come out of it after fighting and they say, we voted 30-0 on everything. We all agree on everything.
It would just all be bleeped out, and not because of curse words. Well, we can't show any of this, but here's 3 hours of the owners' meetings. You can't hear any of it. You can't see anybody's faces. Nothing.
Yeah, and I don't want to stare at all those faces the whole time. What's the beef? All right, let's hit it. Obviously, there's 3 players here, so we want to get your perspective. Todd Father, owners meetings, Florida, right now. Lots of news coming out of there. One article from Evan Drellick, who really is like hired to cover these kind of stories, is how there's a lot of debate about how they want to handle a salary cap push in the next collective bargaining agreement. They're debating the push at the summit. And to summarize, they all, of course, want it. The main reason is for cost control, so they can kind of push down salaries, make their team valuations larger and their profits larger. These are obvious business decisions. Nobody's disputing that part. But the debate is, how much do they want to push? Because some owners seem to be okay with missing a good chunk of time, and others are probably concerned about how that would affect the sport short and long term.
I mean, if this ever was to happen, which it never will or should, baseball would be in a lot of trouble. This is why other players from other major sports are jealous of baseball, because because I played in it, we don't have a salary cap. And I think that's the biggest part. Like, you can go ahead and sign a guy for $700+ million and give him 40 something or 50 something million a year. It comes up a lot. And I think Manfred and his team are trying to figure something out. They're like, oh, well, look at the Dodgers, see what they did. Well, guess what? That's their choice. They can go over the tax threshold. Any team can do it. You talk about small market teams. All these owners are billionaires. They can go out and buy a big name if they wanted to. This will never happen, nor should it happen. This is why it's a great sport, and they can make as much money as possible. That sounds greedy, but it's not. This is the way baseball is and the way the world is. Other sports are making millions as well, but the salary cap, you could keep bringing that up, and Tony Clark's going to keep denying it, and he should.
Let's stop talking about this. Let's stop talking about it as owners. Let's start talking about how can we all be competitive. We don't need parity. Like, why does the parity thing have to happen? Like, you all put your best foot forward, do the best you can to be competitive, not equal, competitive. Like, no other business that they own would they sit there and go, you know what? My business is really successful, but yours isn't as successful. Here, I'll give you some extra money so that yours is almost as successful as mine. Stop. It doesn't need to happen. This is a sport. Everybody needs to sit in that meeting and go, what are you going to do to make your team the best out there? Because when they do that, it's going to raise the tide for everybody's money. And now whatever you make, you're just going to all make a higher percentage.
AJ, you know what I want when this battle goes down? Because we know about the committee. There's like 6 owners that have been on it.
Open the books. Open the books.
Well, they're never going to do that. But here, can I offer this as a
100%.
consolation prize from players when we bring them on during this fight in a couple of years? I just want to know what John Fisher has to say, like behind closed doors. Like, I want to know where his head's at, what he thinks about baseball. You know, maybe they give him a baseball IQ test and have him name 10 players in the sport. If he's going to be sitting in these meetings deciding the future of our sport, and there's the tweet from Bill Shaken, they have elevated him. He's gotten a promotion to the executive committee. So that committee, as far as I know, sits down and bargains stuff like salary caps. So he's going to be pushing that to the player committee in a couple years. And I mean, he might be, you know, the dumbest owner in modern history. Like, he does every single thing wrong. And it's not just the decision making, but it's the process, it's the PR. He's botched everything and made our sport embarrassing. I mean, we have minor league baseball or a minor league field now taking control of a team for several years at least, right? It's embarrassing to everyone. That's the problem for me, AJ. So I'm just curious to see how this goes down. I hope somebody will just report from behind the scenes and tell me what's going on, because we've only heard him speak publicly a few times. It's super scripted and coordinated and maybe even programmed in his brain chip. So I'm just very curious to hear how this goes.
We'll see. We'll see. I mean, I don't even know what that does. I don't even know what the owner's executive committee does. Meet with the players?
Yes, just like I think it's like the players subcommittee that goes against them in the.
I'm going to ask Kratz. Someone, I did a Barstool interview today with White Sox Dave, our guy, and they asked me if I was ever on the committee or a player rep, and I was like, no, they never wanted me to do that kind of stuff. But I think Kratz, were you a player rep one year? Like I went to some negotiations. I went to negotiations, and when it was in Chicago, and they wanted players to show up, and I sat in some of those for a few hours and listened to it. And I got to hear a bunch when I was with the Twins, and they were trying to contract us. And Denny Hawking was a good buddy, and he was the player rep, and he was telling us all this stuff. And I mean, I don't know. You hear stories like, look at the player committee from this past year when they were talking about trying to get rid of Tony Clark and Bruce Meyer, right? And then a lot of those guys got kicked off of it. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know enough about it to know what these guys do, because even like the player, I know what the player executive committee is supposed to do. They're supposed to, whatever 11 guys are supposed to make basically a decision for all the players. But I've never sat in one of those meetings, so I don't really know what happens.
Yeah, that's essentially it. You're gathering from your team as a rep. I was an alternate, so I was just there listening to guys gather their information or seeing the text threads. Hey, how do you guys feel about this? How do you guys feel about that? Some guys as reps did a good job. Some guys didn't.
Yeah, and the reason to me why someone like Fisher gets promoted is because he's a legend in that circle, because he's actually moving a team. And so he creates leverage, which is the key word, for every other team when they're asking their city and their taxpayers for money, right? So I want to leave everyone with this and just tell me which side you're on, okay? I got a quote from Drellick's story with the commissioner. He said he's talking about a lockout in a couple of years, which obviously I don't want. And I think I'll speak for the fans. Most fans are not into that.
Didn't we just have a lockout? Didn't we just have a lockout?
Yeah, we did, but it didn't technically miss games. They just started like a few days later or whatever. So here, the commissioner's perspective, quote, in a bizarre way, it's actually a positive. There is leverage associated with an off-season lockout, and the process of collective bargaining under the NLRA works based on leverage. The great thing about off-season lockouts is the leverage that exists gets applied between the bargaining parties. Tony Clark with a response to this quote. Players know from firsthand experience that a lockout is neither routine nor positive. It's a weapon, plain and simple, implemented to pressure players and their families by taking away a player's ability to work. Simple question. Lockout, good or bad for a sport, any sport? Thumbs down, thumbs down, thumbs down. Okay, cool. That's it. I just want to like sometimes take us all back to common sense and what we think actually is legit.
Why would a lockout be good for any sport? You lose games, you lose interest from fans, you lose revenue for both sides. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, a strike and a lockout, I mean, I get their necessary evil sometimes, but it's not good for either side. And baseball's got it going right now. Like everything we look at, projections up, projections up. Remember, 94 was the last strike. How'd it work out? Everyone was like, oh, it's dying, it's dying, it's dying. Cal Ripken, the home run race in 98 kind of brought everyone back to it. But again, it kind of lost interest. Now everyone's starting to like come back. Everything's up. We don't want to break that momentum. Let's keep it going up. Figure it out, guys.
Yep. There you go. Some people watch the show and then comment later on about where my side lies. All I did was read a quote. That is a direct quote from both sides. Be right back, FT fam. Let's preview the Angels with Sam Blum. I really don't give a crap about anything besides watching games and having a good time and being entertained. So it's just funny. Sometimes I bring this stuff up and they're like, oh, Scott, you're being too pro player or this or that. I'm like, I literally just read a quote this time. So I'm really curious to see what pops up. I went verbatim quote. One side paraphrasing, lockouts are good. Other side, lockouts are bad. I will disagree with a lot that is on both sides, but this part is crystal clear. That is stupid. That is litigation, and that is why often our sport is looked at from some people, the gateholders, as a legal battle versus a sport that's fun and entertaining and great for the community. That's the part that pisses me off. I get business, but I don't get constant litigation. That's the part that pisses me off. And that's what happens. That's what our sport revolves around. Most decisions revolve around litigation. Why are half the teams sitting out the offseason? Is it because they don't want to win? They want to lose? Or is there a greater long-term plan to piss people off and say, oh, no, we're poor. We can't do anything. The Dodgers are evil.
Let me say this. There's never been a platform like our platform during a CBA. During a collective bargaining agreement, there's only been one baseball platform that has enabled people to hear the same rhetoric from the same people pumped into the earpieces of the people on that platform. Just be prepared that you're going to hear a different side of it, and you're going to hear the owner's side from us, and you're going to hear the player's side, because it's only fair for you to decide as a fan when you hear both sides, not just one side. You've only heard one side for a long time.
Right. No scripts. Offers for both sides to come on and talk this out. That's what I'll tell you, because one side does get scripts when they have to talk about things. We don't get scripts. We're not owned by anyone. And we're going to say some things on the player side are stupid, right? Like them fighting over, in my mind, over certain rules in the past, like the pitch clock, stupid. And that held back the sport too. But we're going to lay it all out. Invites are going to be out there for everyone. So when we do get to that point, hopefully it's short, but it probably won't be. It'll at least last the
Hopefully
entire
we don't get to
offseason.
that. Hopefully we don't get to that point.
We're going to get to that.
That would be helpful.
I know. Let's just not, though. Like I said, figure it out. There's too much good going in baseball right now. I don't care what Cam Newton says. There's too much good going right now. Why the heck would we want to ruin it?
At minimum, I think the owners just said we're going to at least have a lockout the entire offseason after 26 into 27. That's the vibe I'm getting.
Loser.
All right, we got our friend Sam Blum with us from The Athletic, joining us to talk about the team that he covers every single day. Sam, good to see you. And we're going to run right into storylines for this team. So let's cue the good stuff. I'll run through the 4 that we must get to, and then we'll do a bonus question or 2 if we have time. So let's hit it. All right, I'll go first, and then I want the rest of my friends here to pick up a question each. A Mike Trout checkup dominated first month of the season, but then he got hurt, and how much outfield versus DH time coming up this year. Christian Moore, 8th overall pick last year. They love to speed their guys through the minor leagues and up to the show. When's he coming? What do we think about this offseason so far for the Angels? Did they do well with Soler and d'Arnaud, who were former Braves, and Yusei Kikuchi joining the rotation? And then there is the always entertaining Anthony Rendon conundrum, which includes Perry Minasian on FT saying that he was going to have to earn his time. So let's start with Trout. Sam, where are we at with Mike Trout and the impact that he could make and how they should play this with him in terms of playing time and where he's going to be, outfield versus DH?
I think the conundrum with Mike Trout and the Angels has always been, well, they kind of know him to be this very twitchy kind of guy that needs to be doing things at all times. So their concern is if he's DHing too much, he's going to be taking swings the entire game, possibly, creating some sort of injury for him. So my estimation is that they're going to do a mixture of all 3 of these things. They're going to have him play center field probably a decent amount. My guess is he'll play the corner outfields a decent amount. And he'll probably DH a decent amount as well. Obviously, they added Jorge Soler. We'll talk about it in a minute, but he will eat up a lot of the DH bats. I mean, they're going to want to have Soler's bat in the lineup, but they're not going to want to have his glove in the field. So it's an interesting kind of dynamic. But yeah, I mean, Trout. They're just hoping he's playing. They hope he's on the field. I mean, at this point, he's missed most of the last 4 years. I mean, 2022 is kind of the anomaly there, but he's missed so much time that at this point, I think they have to try something a little different. But you also just kind of have to hope that he stays healthy and maybe give him a couple more days off here and there. But it's at some point it's just got to stay on the field, and if he does, great, and if he doesn't, that's just kind of what they've come to expect.
When it comes to rankings, farm systems, the Angels, they rank pretty low, but they have a guy here that just signed 8th overall, Christian Moore. Could he be the next guy that gets called up? We know the Angels are fast trackers when it comes to bringing their guys up. This kid's an absolute stud. Where do you see this guy being called up, sooner than later?
Yeah, I mean, he would have been called up on September 1st of last year if he didn't injure his knee like 2 days before that, which was an unfortunate thing for him. He did come back at the very end of the season. So yeah, I would not be shocked if he makes the opening day roster, especially, we'll talk about Rendon, but it's because I don't think there's a spot in the starting lineup guaranteed to Rendon. There's some opportunities, especially in the infield. Zach Neto is hurt right now. There's no guarantee he's going to start the season. I think it's more likely than not he doesn't start the season on the active roster. So I would not be surprised whatsoever if Christian Moore comes into camp, does as well as expected, and is starting at second base to begin the season. Now that's not a guarantee. I mean, they signed Kevin Newman. They could put Luis Rengifo at third. They have a bunch of other guys at shortstop that they can go there early in the season if they don't think Moore is ready. But I think this is an important year for Perry and for this front office, and I'm sure they're going to want to go out there with their guys and give themselves the best chance to have a winning season as possible. So if Christian Moore gives him that, I would be not surprised whatsoever if he's starting on March 27th.
Sorry, I know I'm supposed to go to something else, but you forgot Tim Anderson. Let's not forget that.
Yes, Tim Anderson. Yes, I love your question. That was a great interview you guys had with him.
Oh, thank you. You forgot that, by the way. He has some experience playing shortstop. He's done okay in his career too. So if he's back, he can be the guy. All right, on to the Braves way. You guys, the Angels have decided we're bringing in Travis d'Arnaud, we're bringing in Jorge Soler, Ron Washington, Eric Young, Bo Porter. All these guys are from the Braves. What is Perry Minasian in love with the Braves for? And then also, you say Kikuchi came in also. He's not a Brave. But the rest of these guys are a bunch of veteran guys coming in from a winning organization. What can they bring to the table?
I mean, I have a hard time with the Braves. Well, obviously, Perry's got a lot of ties to the Braves, but it's, for me, it's like I look at the Braves, they're spending more money. I mean, they've got a really balanced payroll in terms of a lot of guys, making a decent amount, and they've signed a lot of their young players early on. I mean, that's the Braves way to me. I mean, I don't think the Angels have hit that. They have some players that have ties to the Braves, but they need to do a lot of things differently to be anything close to what that organization has accomplished in the last 5, 6, 7 years, really dating back longer than that. So I mean, they have some guys there that have ties, but that's, to me, it rings a little hollow. I think that individually, obviously, a guy like Travis d'Arnaud is a really experienced big league catcher. I think it'll help a player like Logan O'Hoppe, who isn't but has a lot of potential. I think on an individual basis, Sal Fasano, I mean, Jorge Soler, these guys have won, and these guys have really accomplished quite a bit in the game, and so it doesn't hurt to have them there. But I don't see the Angels molding themselves in the Braves, image at this point, just given the fact that they lost 99 games last year, and their offseason so far has been incredibly incomplete.
Sam, you didn't say Mike Frostad, their head athletic trainer.
Frostad,
he was from the Braves too. I mean, if you
Yes,
leave out Frosty, then I don't know that you can come on FT as often if you're leaving out my guy Frosty. But
we love Frosty.
Yes, everybody loves Frosty. But what about Rendon? Perry Minasian came on here and said he's going to have to earn his spot. And you've already talked about Rengifo possibly, or Christian Moore if Rengifo, slides over there. You sit there and you go, is this a case where they're going to buy him out of his contract? They're going to cut him and eat the rest of his contract during this season?
I don't think I would be very surprised if it happens before the season starts. And they've got a kind of a history. I mean, Justin Upton a couple of years ago, obviously they let him, see how he did in spring, and then they weren't happy with it, and they cut him right before the season started. You look at Albert Pujols again. That was in May, I believe, of 2021. But both of those guys were on the last year of their deal. I just don't see, and I don't think the front office really sees Artie being willing to part with over $76 million owed to Rendon. That being said, if it happens during the season, I mean, ultimately he gets hurt, he's unproductive. I mean, he hasn't a home run since July of 23. I mean, this is a player that has lost so much of what made him really great when he was with the Nationals. and I don't put that on him. I mean, that's just the natural progression of aging to some extent. And who knows? I mean, anything's possible. I mean, he can come back and be, semi-productive, I think. But if he's not, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point during the season he's like, I just don't think it'll happen before the year. I think they're gonna give it a go. And I don't know if he'll be this everyday starting third baseman, but they might want to have him be a backup first baseman, backup third baseman. I could see that, maybe even some second base here and there. But I think they're going to try to get creative with him and hope for the best and hope to keep him on the field as much as he possibly can.
Sam, what's it like? Does that situation actually get felt in the clubhouse because you're in the clubhouse almost every day? Or is there more talk and noise about it, in the public sphere? We certainly get a lot of questions and see a lot of comments whenever Rendon is brought up because he's a super highly paid player that definitely is not the most in love with baseball. So does the clubhouse, does the organization feel it when he's there? That's what I'm always curious about, because I'm like, if that's the case, why are you going to let that ruin your season when you're not getting the production on the field anymore?
I think you'd have to give some players some truth serum, but I don't think it's a huge deal in the clubhouse because, so many of these guys are younger players and, at the end of the day, like they're not really concerned about Rendon, right? They're concerned about, developing themselves, proving that they can be big league players, trying to win some games here and there. It's been a struggle to do that, obviously. So I would be surprised I'm sure there's probably players in that clubhouse who see him making the money he's making and not playing and, coming in the media and talking about how he's, not prioritizing or baseball's not his top priority or whatever. And just kind of being antagonistic and feeling like, well, I can never get away with that. And there's probably some resentment there, but if I had to guess, this is, the fans are the ones who probably feel the worst about this. They're the ones who have followed this story for 5 years. There's almost nobody on the Angels who's been on the roster that long to kind of see how this is all played out or was here when they signed him. So, I think this is more of a public issue. I think it's a front office issue. I think it's an ownership issue and probably at the coaching staff level too. But in the clubhouse, I don't think like these guys are sitting here angry at Rendon or wanting him gone. It's the fans, and I don't blame the fans. If I was an Angels fan, I would probably feel that way. It's frustrating watching a guy that's getting paid that much not play.
You talk about the fans. This might hurt their feelings. You might lose some subscribers. Where are they going to finish in the division?
If I said they were going to be good, that's what would make me lose subscribers. I just don't. People want the honest truth there, and I don't think they're off season. Last time Perry really came out and talked, he talked to the winter meetings, but before that was November 27th, and he said after they signed Kikuchi that day, they said they're going to be aggressive, they're going to remain aggressive, they're going to continue to make a lot of changes to this roster, and since that day, the only addition they've made is Chucky Robinson as like a third string catcher. And they also picked up a guy in the Rule 5 draft. So they've done almost nothing in the last 2 months. Yeah, major league deals right there. I know, I'm sorry. And they got J.D. Davis and Anderson. They've got, Yolmer Sanchez the other day. So, they've got, some White Sox players. But, they're
maybe
not
they're
doing
West.
What's that?
We talked about the Braves. They're White Sox West now. Right?
Yeah,
We talked about the Braves. Chucky Robinson, Tim Anderson, Yolmer Sanchez. Who else? What other ex-White Sox can we throw in there?
Well, it's funny because the White Sox the White Sox just hired Phil Nevin. They have the Marcus Timms. They have Matt Wise and Drew Butera on their coaching staff. All guys who have been with the Angels in the last couple of years. So maybe they're
Angels Midwest.
Yeah,
they're Angels Midwest. Ooh, that would actually be a pretty big improvement. I know it was the worst season in franchise history for the Angels last year. Was it their worst win-loss?
Yes,
it was. But
It
you know
was
what the White Sox would call that? The White Sox would call that big improvement. They lost 99 games?
The Angels lost 99. The White Sox lost 121, and they face each other opening day this year. So something's got to give. So,
oh,
I will say, a lot of Angels fans watch this show, including on the TV side. It's not great right now. But your team was 22 games better than the White Sox. And you did a lot in the offseason. So I do, right? Like, you might not love every move, but if you look at where those two teams were last year, okay, and then what they did this offseason, it is a big difference. You are a big tier up from what Chicago is dealing with right now on the South side.
I just don't think Angels fans are trying to compare themselves to what the White Sox are, and I mean, they lost 99 games, and they have made some moves, but they're not in the mix for big name players, and I think that's what frustrates people the most, because that's always been a place where they've been, at least in the mix here, and they're watching guys go left and right that they Angels fans have and it's so often the Angels names are attached to these players, and it just doesn't really pan out, and it's unclear if it's because teams they don't want to sign them or the players don't want to come play there, but. I think it's a tough spot. To answer your question, like I would, I'm not really sure. I would put them in 5th right now. I mean, it could be, they could surprise a lot of people. The division's, I think, wide open, so there's an opportunity for them to do really well. But I look on paper right now, I don't think they're better than any other team in the AL West, and that's, it's a tough spot to be in.
The A's actually had a really nice second half of the season, so we'll see what happens. Okay, but I do like the plan of at least bringing some of what the Braves did over to Anaheim. That can't hurt. They've done a lot of things well. Sam will try and keep the glass half full. Thanks for the time. Good to see you again.
We'll see what happens. Thank you for having me.
Yes, we will see. We will see. Sam Blum, take all of his articles in at The Athletic on the Angels. Be right back. We'll do this during a break here from the TV crowd, but for the YouTube crowd, just because I don't think there's a ton to add, but at least not from us. But AJ, all you here, there was an article about the Rays and the St. Pete mayor, and the headline, what is it, the Tampa Bay Times, I think it was, is that they're ready to move on without the club because they're battling over these extra costs, from the delays. And I guess they're figuring out how to split it and who's paying for it and all that. And it just seems to go on and on, man.
For real. Yeah.
Front Office Sports. Sorry. That's
Welch, I think his name is Welch. Mayor Welch in Tampa and St. Pete came out and basically said, yeah, we're ready to move on if you can't figure this out. And we've talked about it here, March 31st is the big deadline. We'll find out more here in the next couple of weeks, but March 31st is when Sternberg has to put up the money or go away, basically. And if he doesn't have the money by then to match the bonds go away. Now they could extend it for 60, 90 days. I don't know if that changes much. But I love, there's some people on Twitter battling over this, about this and that, but, the Rays are in a lease until 28 or 29. Great. You know what that tells me? That's 3 years for Orlando to get their stuff together and build a stadium, which they can do. Move them to Orlando if Sternberg can't do it. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying Orlando has a lot of things going for it. Public funding, private funding they found. Trust me, there's a lot going on in the Orlando space. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if it doesn't get, this is, what this is to me? No one wants to be the politician that loses a sports team from their town. This is the mayor of St. Pete saying, listen, we've thrown everything we can at them. We've funded it. We've given them the land. We've found the land. We've given them all these things, and they won't play ball with us. He's like, I'm giving up. So now he's basically throwing it back on the Rays, saying the ball is in your court because we've done everything we can. And if they leave, it's not my fault as mayor.
Right. And they want them to just acknowledge the agreement they already came to terms on, which seems very fair. But it does sound like there is a clock on this one because they want it resolved. And MLB is getting tougher with these situations because I do believe they want expansion. I think Manfred wants to at least announce expansion before he's done. Right. And they're going to add 2 teams, and they've promised they're not going to do that unless they settle the situations. I mean, you can make the case that neither situation settled yet with the A's and the Rays, but it's been the same talk for like 20 years. So I do feel like there's a legit deadline coming soon here. We'll see.
He wants to split into divisions too. That's his legacy.
Yeah, East versus West.
Gives him that.
Perfect picture for Randy Johnson. That's how he looks when he wakes up every morning and stares at the mirror. How good was he? Randy Johnson was a crazy wild man. on the mound, literally wild for a while in the beginning of his career. And they were like, can this dude corral it? Because if he can, he's going to be a legend. And that's what turned out to be the case for him. Super tall, strikeout machine. So let's run through some stats and then we'll get the personal experiences from you guys. How good was Randy Johnson? He won 5 Cy Young Awards, including racking them up back to back to back to back. 1999 through 2002, he was a World Series co-MVP. 22 years in the show, 10-time All-Star. Average season was a close to 6-win player in a low 3s ERA. Led the league in strikeouts 9 times. Pitched a perfect game in 2004. He was quite tall, and there were quite a few kind of mythical experiences that he had in baseball we'll get into. A Hall of Famer inducted in 2015. He pitched until he was 46 years old. So, AJ, you want to kick it first? Your Randy Johnson experiences and how ridiculous he was?
Am I the only person that faced him on here? Todd, did you face him?
Nope.
Kratz, you faced him? Oh, so I faced him when he was with the Yankees. I got one game against him. I think I went 0-3, maybe punched once. But he wasn't the same Randy Johnson when I faced him. Obviously, he was older and he was still throwing at 6'10". Imagine Chris Sale at 6'10" instead of 6'4", throwing it from literally the first base dugout. It was crazy. An interesting at bat, was crazy, wild. He would do some crazy things, kind of had that Pedro temper where every once in a while he'd let one fly over your head. But I will say this, he was a great pitcher. The only guy I ever asked in my life to sign an autograph said no.
Wow.
Maybe,
hey, I need
maybe
more.
Maybe
Player
he
to
didn't
player.
like you.
That's fine, but still, I'm
Yeah.
sure there's other people, but if your worst enemy came up to you and said, "Hey, will you sign a jersey for me?" and they had the jersey, you would still do it out of respect for them being a major league player. I don't know what happened.
What was the context?
It's too long of a. Okay, so it's simple. And when we were in Tucson, we shared a complex with the Diamondbacks. So I asked the visiting clubhouse guy of the Diamondbacks. I said, "Hey, will Randy sign a jersey for me?" He said, "You have to call over and ask him yourself." Okay, so I call over to the Diamondbacks clubhouse. They answer. I say, "Hey, this is AJ Pierzynski with the White Sox. I was wondering if Randy will sign a jersey for me." They're like, "He's in the training room. Da-da-da. Call back in 20 minutes." So I call back again, and I'm like, "Hey, this is da-da-da-da-da." They're like, "Oh, well, he said call back tomorrow." And I was like, okay. Like, he knows why I'm calling. Like, I'm not chasing this dude. So, again, he was the only guy that, not that he ever said no. It's just like, I'm not going to call this guy 50 times. He knows why I'm calling. That was it. Wasn't that big of a deal, like, to just have me send it over. He signed it. I don't care. Sign it and throw it. I don't care. Whatever. Like, do what you got to do. But just, I don't know. It was just it was weird.
That is weird. Todd Father, your experience watching Randy and hearing about him?
Yeah, one of the most imposing figures you'll see on a mound. I mean, with his stature, he just got up there and threw it as hard as he could. The one I remember, he probably doesn't like him. Mark McGwire hit that home run off him at Seattle's old park. I forget what it was called, absolute missile. But that was probably the only time someone's took him that far deep. But he was unbelievable, one of the nastiest sliders. Anybody who has ever talked about him says they couldn't see the ball until it was in the glove, and then he'd throw that slider, and you'd see all right-handers basically falling over the other side of the plate. Fun to watch, and he just gripped it and ripped it, and that's old school at its finest. Hall of Famer for sure. And I'm jealous. I wish I got to face him one time because I liked hitting off left-handed pitchers.
There's very few guys that, you hear old-time guys talk about, even when Barry was on, like, you hit one homer, they're going to walk you 3 times or they're going to throw over your head. He said, now guys don't do that. You're right. Now guys throw 100 miles an hour. Everybody looks comfortable in the box. There is an aspect to not being comfortable in the box, and clearly the numbers that he put up were making hitters uncomfortable. When you talk about early in his career, he had 120, 152, and 144 walks, leading the league. So he had that by his age 28 season. Then he started to figure it out, dropped down to 99 walks, dropped down to 72 walks, and he started striking out 300-plus dudes. The way I look at it is everybody in the big leagues has talent. The elite guys have more talent and they can play through things. When you play till you're 46 years old, when you lead the league at 38 years old in strikeouts, at 40 years old, he led the league again in strikeouts. It just shows this dude was playing at a different level. And so when you start to decline, now you're just coming down to the pack. You're not like, I'm much worse than everybody else. You're just coming back down to reality. I mean, some of the numbers, anytime you look at a guy's baseball reference page and it's a lot of bold and some italics, which means season leader, career leader, all that stuff, Randy Johnson's got a ton of bold. Probably one of the top 5 pitchers of all time.
All right, by the way, I got to say this. I believe, and I might be wrong in this, he gave up back-to-back homers off in 2005 against the White Sox. That may be the only I'm pretty sure it's the only time in his career he did it, but I just looked it up. Yeah, Aguchi, Rowan, Konerko, 3 home runs in a row. Let's just say he wasn't very happy about that.
That's why he wouldn't sign for you, because he.
I wouldn't hit it. I didn't play in that.
I
didn't play in that game. No, this was
You're such a White Sox.
I mean, I had nothing to do with it. I didn't play. I didn't play against him until way later than that. But I did see it happen. He wasn't very happy. But
4 times in a row he won the Cy Young. Think about that right now.
He was awesome.
He was awesome. Do you think that there are certain legends in sports that have an excuse to kind of be a jerk? Right? Like some people would say, like, oh, MJ, like he was so competitive that he was a jerk about certain things.
Okay. I mean, that's a reason. That's not an excuse. That doesn't enable you to be a jerk. I just think you live in a different world. I don't think anybody understands what it's like to be Randy Johnson, and that's fine. So, but he doesn't have to take it out on everybody else. Some superstars are introverts. They don't want the attention. They don't want somebody calling to ask for their autograph. But it's part of it's a mutual respect for the other humans that you're in a sport with. And I don't think there's a place for it, but obviously I was as high up as Randy Johnson was. I was down here. So, and I get that, but on the level of human beings, we're still both human beings. So to me, that's where I think everybody should be treated fairly and respectfully.
Well, if he's just like, I hate the world, Todd Father, so I want to strike everyone out, and I'm going to have to be mean and just sacrifice my character because this is me and this is how I'm at my best. I don't know. I mean, I'm probably just creating an excuse for him, but I can't get inside his head.
He blew up a bird too.
Certainly, I do remember that part. Yeah, he even heard a bird. That was the All-Star game in
spring training.
Spring training, yeah.
Oh, spring training. Yeah, the All-Star game was. Do you remember the All-Star game moment?
He
The
threw
back
over
of
John
John
Kruk.
Kruk. Yeah.
Camden Yards.
He threw over Kruk, and then Kruk's just like, "Yeah, I'm good. I don't really want to do this. I'm not getting paid extra for this game. I don't really want to be here if this dude's throwing at my head $100."
That's what the Pro Bowl's turned into now. His left-handed hitters hitting from the right side like Larry Walker did against Randy Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Pro Bowl is definitely not for competition, for competitors.
Not it.
But, yeah. All right. Well, that's our thoughts on Randy Johnson. If you're catching this
Let's
after
not forget,
the fact, let us know.
Minus the story. Listen, this dude was awesome on the mound when he took them out and he figured it out. Ask anybody. He was one of the toughest at bats for lefties, righties. Deserved to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, 300 wins, all the Cy Youngs. Listen, this guy was incredible, better than 99.9% of the players in history. So he was great.
Facts.
2,500 strikeouts in one league, 2,300 in the other league. That is crazy. That is crazy work.
Yeah, we had a Nolan Ryan quote. He said in the early 90s that he told Randy he could be the most dominating pitcher in baseball if he would just work on his game. He was a lot like me when I was younger. He was just pitching and doing a lot of thinking. Did you guys, for the catchers, experience tall dudes sometimes who struggled more to figure out the control and like figure out their body and then eventually would get it down? I mean, actually, in modern times, I can think of at least one example. Tyler Glasnow was supposed to be the next big thing, and it took him a minute, and he's pretty close to Randy's height.
It's like tall hitters. Anytime your mechanics have a chance to break down, you're going to have a tougher time being consistent. Randy Johnson could probably just throw a ball 100 miles an hour forever when he was a kid. How does his mechanics not break down when you have so many levers and levers and elbows and knees coming at you? You have to condense your mechanics. You have to make them smaller and shorter because of how tall and long everything is. And you see it a lot with pitchers. You see it a lot with really tall pitchers. And some of the best really tall pitchers that I caught had this like short stride, short arm from a really high angle. John Rouse, Chris Young, the 6'10" kid that was from a super nice kid from the Rays, got a cup of coffee in the big leagues. They shortened up their stroke. They shortened up their stride and everything and their arm swing because it just was so inconsistent trying to find that same release point.
Golfers.
There you go.
Don't see a lot of tall. That's why you don't see a lot of tall golfers. A lot of tall golfers can mash the ball, but they have a hard time repeating it because it's such a long levers and so many things to get in sync. It's one of the, like I said, most golfers, now there are exceptions, but most golfers are fairly short.
It's almost like when people came up with some of these sports, they were shorter. Right? Baseball's how old now?
Oh, you mean in like history? Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't have all these friggin' 6'8" monsters walking around back then. People have gotten taller. It's a thing. All right, so that's Randy Johnson. We've been doing this series for a minute. Ichiro, Barry Bonds, etc. If there's someone we should talk about, let us know. FT fam, we're coming back to go over FanGraphs percentages in terms of where your team could make the postseason. What they think. BetMGM over for me. Tarik Skubal, 211.5 strikeouts. Does anyone have under on this number? And if they do, you can go first. Pitcher strikeouts for the season are tough. And really, I think with most guys, you're playing the injury guessing game. Strider last year had a number that most people probably looked at and said, oh man, Spencer Strider in his prime, no problem. But he got hurt. And that's where you get beaten here. Anyone have an under on Skubal's 211.5? AJ, why?
I'm going to take around 200 because I think with Flaherty back, I think the Tigers are going to be better, and there might be a start or two where he's a little sore and they skip him. So, yeah, 228 last year. It's not that many starts he has to miss in order to be under 211, so I'm going to put him around 200.
I would agree.
Okay.
I would agree because also – there might be a little bit of slower ramp up. He pitched all the way into October. This is a guy that hadn't pitched but one season in his career before that where he had 29 or more starts. He had 31 plus the postseason. So I'm going under. I do think he eclipses the 200 mark, though, because he's a competitive dude, and he's going to see 178, 189, 190, and he's going to be like, I'm going to get 200 because I just want it.
Mm-hmm. Todd Father, which way are you going?
I would say the over. Again, you bring up a good point. Health, maybe skipping a start, knowing that they're in the playoffs, that kind of deal. But I would say 215 range, 220.
Yeah, I'm in the same range. I could see a 220-ish piece. I just think he's super confident too, and I think he's going to build off what he did last year. I think he was kind of still learning what worked for him as he was going through last season because, like Kratz said, he hasn't pitched a ton, right? He hasn't been consistently putting up innings like that. But I do think that, the less wear and tear on the arm now will be to his benefit in this portion of his career. Hey, you can bet on a player to find the end zone and win a share of $250,000 in bonus bets if they end up scoring the longest touchdown in the big game coming up this weekend. You got to place at least a $10 or more anytime touchdown wager. If you have more concern, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let's sizzle here. Playoff chances, FanGraphs. Where do they have your team? Let's look at the board and just pick it apart. Tell me what you think. Something that looks real nice, something that looks like they're getting the short end of the stick. Dodgers and the Braves are the only two teams in the 90s for percentage chance. The bottom of the list we're currently looking at still includes competitive teams, of course. The Tigers at 47%. The Orioles at 44.5%. Actually, you go below that, you've got the Padres at 32.5%. And it's funny, you look at the Padres, and we keep mentioning this. I mean, they were one win from beating the Dodgers and then probably beating the Yankees in the World Series. So, Todd Father, something you like or don't like?
The first one that came to mind was the Braves, 93%. I don't know if it should be that high. I think they're going to be good, but I think, man, I don't know. The Braves, to me, I don't know if 93%, that means guaranteed playoffs, and I don't know if it's guaranteed for them just yet.
I look at the number 32.5 for the Padres. I think it should be higher. I really think I do. I don't think it should be over 50%, but to me, I was either going to say the Orioles or the Padres, because I feel like both those teams I think they have a better shot than the Twins. I think they have, maybe not the Twins, but the Orioles definitely have a better shot than the Twins. So when I'm looking at that bunch there, it was weird to see the Padres on the bottom of that middle tier.
To me, the Orioles are lower than the Red Sox. Did the Red Sox miraculously have the best offseason of all time? Am I missing something? The Red Sox are 50.7. The Orioles are 44.5. Don't they play in the same division? I mean, that's, to me, is the crazy one to me that I look at and I'm like, the Red Sox are higher than the Orioles. What are we looking at? Because I think most people would say the Orioles would have a much better shot this year unless the Red Sox make some other moves to get to the postseason.
Agreed. Orioles are better than the Red Sox. Now, I think it'll be
Maybe not.
pretty close between those two, right?
To me, if you're thinking the Orioles are that bad, you are buying the second half and not the first half, and not what at the beginning of last season, you're talking about one of the better teams in the American League.
All right, let us know thoughts. What we'll do next is gather a ton of questions today from the chat and answer them during Slap Hands. So I want a little extra time. So we're going to give you like 5 to 10 minutes for Slap Hands, and we'll rip through as many of those questions as possible. Be right back. All right, so I got many. I'm putting them together as you guys have been talking here. But we'll take one from Instagram. So Kratz said the Mets are a third place team. And none of us think you're crazy, for the record. I mean, the Braves and the Phillies are really good. I think it's less a knock on the Mets and more praise for the other two clubs. But it was Nick on Instagram with a comment. He goes, the Mets are the only team who can bring back the same team and add a future Hall of Fame player, and people think they will be worse.
Okay. I mean, they brought back Luis Severino. Like,
Nope.
Like you were. I mean, you look at it's another case of like, are you buying what they did at the end of the year, or was that start just it was fake? It wasn't a real start. To me, they have questions, and we kind of broke it down. I'm not going to break down the whole roster again, but there was pieces that yes, they brought these guys back. They still have those holes that they need to fill. And they were one pitch away from being ousted out of the playoffs. They were one loss away at the end of the season from not making the playoffs, and the Diamondbacks making it after that doubleheader against the Braves. I mean, if somebody has a legitimate argument for that, like I would love to see it. Like to me, I thought the Diamondbacks were a better team than the Mets. If they played another week of the season, would the Mets have gotten overtaken by the Diamondbacks? I don't think so, because the Diamondbacks started to struggle at the end of the season, and you kind of saw it because they could not pitch. Exhibit B, 2025 Mets. How are they going to pitch? Can you do the same thing with reclamation projects? Is Senga going to pitch 5 games, more than the 2 that he threw last year? Are you going to get Frankie Montas I don't know. I mean, Frankie Montas is getting 30 starts if he's healthy. Is that going to carry your team?
I think these are all super legit questions and super legit regular season questions,
Yeah,
which why
100%.
I'll stand by making your point very valid that they probably have the 3rd best chance at winning the division. I think it's close with them in Atlanta. I actually think Philadelphia, with the depth in their starting rotation, has a lot of regular season juice. Good points, though. I like it, Kratz. All right, we love the FT fam, and you ask us questions all over, YouTube, Instagram, podcast, the whole deal, right? If you write reviews, we always get to those questions. So we've got 10 good minutes to go over as many as we can right now that were asked live during the show. Here we go. Justin said, is Bregman going to pivot back to Houston since he wants a long-term deal? And this is playing off Bob Nightingale's report today that Bregman still only wants the 6-7 year type of contract offers. So I think he's got a good point if that's what he's going for. Do you guys think Houston's the spot? I've got Houston or Detroit and no chance for Boston or Chicago. What do you guys think?
Agreed. Houston, Detroit. I think Detroit would be a spectacular fit. Knowing that we've said this before, AJ Hinch. I mean, those two guys have had plenty of time together. Did I say his name right? Or I would get that wrong.
AJ Hinch.
I thought I said
right.
Hinch. I thought it said Hinch. I'm confusing myself. But yeah, I just think it's a great fit for Detroit. They're up and coming. They have some guys that they just play together as a team. I think Bregman will fit that mold, and I think he'll go out there and be a really good ball player for this team. Is he going to get that big contract, though? I'm not sure. With the way things are going. I hope every player gets as much as they want, but we will see as the time gets closer. Their deal should be done pretty soon with him, and spring training is almost there.
Yeah, it just doesn't sound like Boston or Chicago are offering him as much years-wise. So, AJ, if that's what he wants, we don't know where Detroit's at, but it sounds like those are the 2 teams in the running.
Didn't we also see where Boston just engaged again with Arenado? Wasn't there? There's reports out there that they just re-engaged again with St. Louis about Arenado. So
yeah,
I mean, it seems like Houston is the logical choice, kind of like with Pete Alonso. But it'll be fascinating to see where if he has a 6'1", like he says. Again, why hasn't he taken it?
He wants more
because he wants a 28 and a half.
Yeah,
maybe that's what he wants. Pete got the 30. I don't know.
Will he take a 1-year deal, though? That's the question. Will he go Pete Alonso and take a 1-year deal? I don't think
he just
so.
made it public. He wants the long term. Yeah, exactly. Pham, do agents have a limit of how many clients they can have? How does that work? No. There's
You're
no
going to
rules
spread
on
it
that.
thin. You're going to spread it thin, and you're not going to be able to take care of them all, or you need other reps underneath, within your in your client base, so that a certain amount of guys take care of a certain amount of guys. But no, they can have them all.
I want to slam this one. AJ, Mike said, I think Vladdy will also overestimate his market. Teams will only pay so much for a first baseman. If he thinks he's getting $400 million because of Soto, he's crazy. Well, he is crazy. He's getting $500 million.
He might get $500 million because he's young too. What did Jim Bowden say? It's all about the age, and Vladdy's going to be like 27, I think he is.
Yep.
When he hits free agency,
all season.
He's going to be. Yeah, he's going to get paid. That's why Soto got paid, because he was young.
Yeah, he's going to get a lot of money. He is. I'm taking the over on 400. Everyone good with that? 400 present day value over. Overs? Okay, good. Good to know. I actually think the Blue Jays might get it done this year, but he's setting a deadline for them, I think, of somewhere around spring training, like when the games begin or when the game ends, whatever. Yeah, spring training. Andrew Toddfather asks if we're going to get Pete on before spring training starts. We're going to get Pete on, but before spring training,
I'm trying. I am trying. I'm waiting for a text back. Sometimes, you guys know, hitting back some major leaguers, they live pretty busy lives. You want to leave them alone as much as possible, but I will give him a call in the next couple days here. And he answered me last time. We had a good, candid conversation about where he was, and now hopefully he doesn't forget about me. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, he loves you. I mean, you are the creator of the polar bear nickname. Any updates? Sicilian asks on when Ohtani will pitch. Yeah, we just got updates. We talked about it earlier this week. May is when they're saying it's happening. I can answer that one. Now I'll ask this one for all of you guys. The earliest, yeah, it could be later because there'll be 80 games over 500 by then, according to everybody who hates them. Justin says, "Who sells more Mets jerseys just for this year, Soto or Alonso?" Well, that's got to be Soto. No, a lot of Mets fans already have Alonso. Yeah,
Soto. That's easy.
Yeah, that's easy. Wesley asked, would players move to reduce years before free agency in addition to getting a salary cap floor? Would that help convince players to get a salary cap?
That'd be a start.
Be a start, but there'd have to be more to it.
You have to have open, like AJ said, you have to have open communication in a way to show what your entire entity, that the Cardinals make, that the Braves make, like all that, and you have to be able to show all those books. Now, they do show the books, and that's one of the other reasons that people don't remember, don't think about it. Players see these books. People on the Players Association, the union meetings, you see the books. You cannot put them out there. They're confidential information. And you have to reduce free agency. You have to reduce the amount of time that a player is allowed to be controlled by a team. Those would be the largest hurdles that teams will never get rid of.
Next question. Jay asks, who's the Padres opening day left fielder? That's actually a tough one right now. I would say it's probably not someone on their team yet, right? Didn't Preller say he still got... Oh, you think Mark Canha? You think that's the guy?
Doesn't strike out, doesn't walk a ton, but he gets hit a ton, so he'll have that on-base percentage. They'll add him into that rotation. Who knows? Cronenworth might play left.
They open with the Braves, right? So it's going to be Chris Sale on the mound for the Braves. So it's not going to be a left-handed hitter. So it's going to have to be a righty, more than likely.
Yeah, and again, I'll still go with somebody probably not on the team.
Who was it? Who was it last year? Tyler Wade? Did he start in left last year out in Korea?
Maybe. And it could be Wade.
He's left-handed. He's not going to face. He's
left-handed, so that wouldn't.
Right.
That wouldn't.
Well, so is Cronenworth, right?
Yeah, but Cronenworth's more of an everyday guy.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll be in left, but.
Okay, so I think consensus is I don't think he's there yet.
Who asked that? Chris or whoever asked that? It'll be a shortstop.
It's going to be.
Used to be a shortstop. That I can lock in.
He and
That's
Desmond.
who Preller gets.
Ian Desmond.
I don't know why. That's just the first thing that came to mind.
They have Tirso or Nellis. Tilso.
Right. Yeah.
Tirso.
He ain't gonna be the starter there. They need someone else. It's nothing against the player. Preller just said 1 or 2 more bats, 1 or 2 more pitchers. I actually think it could be somebody from another team via trade for Cease. Maybe one of those Orioles. Maybe it's Cedric Mullins.
Maybe it's Ramon Laureano.
Ramon Laureano just signed a deal that they trade him. That would be a thing.
I thought that was actually a very smart segment yesterday that we did, going over what was going on there. Yeah. Let's do one more. Nathan, favorite pitcher that you guys caught in your careers? Are you guys okay answering that, or are you going to piss too many people off?
There's always a favorite. Todd has a favorite kid. He definitely.
All right, so you guys say your favorite pitchers, and Todd says his favorite kid.
My favorite kid, meaning what? My sons or my daughters?
Yeah, all your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, which one's your favorite?
All right, that's pretty simple. I don't care. I'm picking my daughter because I got 2 sons. I can't pick between them.
Yeah, you go Princess first always. Yes. All right, pitcher. Do you guys get this question, and do you answer it?
Yeah. I mean, I'll answer anything. I don't care.
All right. Who is your favorite pitcher to catch?
People want me to say Mark Burley, and I do love Mark. I love you, but I'm going to go Brad Radke from back in the day.
Nice. Quick worker, puts it where you want it, right?
And I'll tell you what, the first time I ever caught him, I'd never caught him get called up to the big leagues. Never caught him in one time because Terry Steinbach was there, caught every bullpen, every pitch, because he was the easiest guy in the world to catch. I get called up to Oakland, straight from AAA. They throw me in the game in like the 4th inning. Never caught one pitch. I go up to Brad and I say, Brad, what do you throw? He goes, fastball, curveball, slider, changeup. I go, all right, what do you like to pitch like? He goes, just use the force, bro. We'll be fine. Okay. Use the force.
Calm you down. I mean, my favorite had to be Cliff Lee. He was ultra competitive. He might have rubbed some people the wrong way based on how competitive he was, but this dude just was out there every single day. We had a lot of competitions, not just on the field, but off the field too. So, Cliff Lee.
Great questions. We're here for 3 more minutes, and then Dodgers territory takes over. Next question from Chris. Rate your kids 1 by 1 on the 20 to 80 scale, the scouting scale. I'm kidding. But he did actually ask that. The questions that
I'll rate them. I tell my kids all the time. My daughter the other day, my daughter's in college, so she's an 80 because she's not home anymore, and I don't have to listen to her every day. My son's still home, so he's more like a 70 still. But the other day, so I'm supposed to go to my son's baseball season starts tomorrow, and there's a game next week. But instead, I was like, oh, I can't go because I'm supposed to go see my daughter next week. So I was like, oh, I'm not coming because I'm going to go to my son's baseball game. She goes, favorite child alert. So my kids know where they stand. They're in 3rd and 4th place behind my 2 dogs.
Which dog is number 1?
Can't reveal.
Ooh, that's tough.
I don't want to hurt their feelings, So
Careful,
I can't really say that.
They're watching. I know it's on somewhere in the house.
Yeah.
All right, let's finish with this last baseball topic here. It's playing off the Padres conversation. There was some Mets talk. Can the Mets put a cherry on top in their offseason and grab Dylan Cease? I need money in the chat was like, I'd love Starling Marte, but I'd rather keep Cease. Well, yeah, Marte is not getting it done. I mean, sure, they could throw him in a package and eat most of the money because it's a money dump for the Padres, but they're going to want some serious long-term talent. So what does that look like for San Diego? Can you create a trade where you solve some long and short-term problems? Can you give them an outfielder like a Starling Marte and then also supplement it with a Jet Williams, who's their top prospect who can play kind of everywhere, and probably get a call up maybe later this season, or maybe a pitcher like a Brandon Sproat. I think there's a fit here. The Mets actually have enough of a farm system. Right, I'm getting some other names. Mauricio. Can Mauricio go in a deal?
They're blocked. There's a lot of position player blockage in San Diego to make that lock up, and I don't know that I love the Mets pitching prospects to get that across the line. I do think Marte is cooked, though. I think he's out of New York. Somewhere. I think he'll get moved to somewhere.
Right. They just need a team to take at least a little bit of the money.
Cease would do it for me. Cease would definitely push them to the upper third place in the American League, in the National League East.
Dude, if they get Cease, they're a problem. I'm telling you, they are a problem. They could do something like slay the big dragon in baseball this year. We'll see. Yep. Thanks, FT Pham. All the questions were great. Got to as many as we could, really. See you on Friday.